B'siyata Dishmaya, we're fortunate to begin a new series. The wonderful book Etz Chaim, arguably the main book of the Arizal, is a compilation of several books we'll be speaking about. The composition of Etz Chaim soon. I want to start. B'ezrat Hashem will be a very long and a committed series of Shiur, and it will take us up until the coming of Mashiach. B'ezrat Hashem. B'imher v'yameinu, Amen.
Amen.
I will start with a prayer. There will be Zoch will have the merit to learn with love for each other, with patience, with the proper honor that each one deserves, to honor the Torah, to honor each other, and the wonderful gift we have to learn Torah, especially in Eretz Yisrael, especially the secrets of the Torah, which many people want to or cannot find the right person to learn with, and many other things we will address in the next months and years, B'ezrat Hashem. This is a recorded shiur, and my hope is that along our communal learning, that many other people will join us all over the globe, or some of us will do a revision of what we learned, because these things are hard to stick. We can sometimes the replay button is the best teacher in the world, as I know from experience, from my history of learning, and therefore I was warned by my wife, my dear wife Yael, that to be careful, to find the right balance between the community here and the recording, and I hope to be able to answer every question. Some questions will be too tedious to answer in class, at which point I will request to delay till after the shiur, and I hope that nobody will be offended if I do so, and judge me favorably, and after the shiur we'll address, and B'ezrat Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu, in your merit and in the merit of all of yours, will give you the right words to say, to be mekaven, to the truth of the Torah, and to say the right things, to honor and not chalila to dishonor anyone or anything in the world.
Yeah.
So we're beginning Sefer, this holy book, Sefer Etz Chaim. It's a very heavy, very deep book, which is actually a compilation of books. Before we begin, I want to explain a bit about the book Etz Chaim, where it comes from, what it's comprised of. It has several books as a digest. Rabbeinu Arizal was born in Yerushalayim roughly 500 years ago. At age 8, he left Eretz Yisrael with his mother. His father died young. They were very poor, and they went to live with their uncle in Cairo, in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. His father was Ashkenazi. His name was Shlomo, I believe, from the family Luria, which I'm also related to from my maternal grandmother. She was also from the Luria family. And as his father said, his mother was a Sfaradi, and they went to live with their uncle in Cairo, a very famous writer, very famous Talmid Chacham of Betzalel Ashkenazi, the author of the Shita Mekubetzet, famous Shita Mekubetzet on the Shas. So Rabbeinu Arizal learned with his uncle as a young Ilui, a young prodigy, and had it not been for his young involvement, his dwelling in the Sefer Azar and in Kabbalah, he probably would have been one of the most famous Talmudic commentaries in the history. But Baruch Hashem, he decided to invest in the study of Kabbalah, already with his uncle, he was involved in the writing of the Shita Mekubetzet. We have some manuscripts of the Shita Mekubetzet Masechet Zevachim, where the Arizal was as a young man was involved in writing, and some of the manuscripts even have, or maybe even prints, have notes. We saw that the Rabbi Arizal was involved in the writing of the Shita Mekubetzet on the Shas. As a young man, probably even before his 20s, I think before his 20s, a merchant came to Cairo, came to his area with a book of the Zohar, which was printed very recent years before that. We used to, every shul, every synagogue, every household having a set of Zohar, if not more, with a commentary, without a commentary. But it was in the very beginning of the print, one of the first books printed at all was the Holy Zohar, and he received or bought the Sefer Zohar, and he was enthralled with it, and for many years he invested more and more time in the Sod and the secrets of the Torah, winning out the amount of time he would partake in the other studies. He was already a Talmudic master at the time, right? And the pinnacle was 19 years of isolation. He was already married as a young man, but he would isolate from in the entire week in a hut on the Nile River, where the Navi with time would come to him and teach him secrets of the Torah. Most of it was learned with tears. He had the Sefer Zohar without a commentary, and he would pour out his heart trying to understand with the tefillah he would put in the effort, of course, but it was tefillot and tears, and sometimes for a whole week he would cry until he was revealed what is the correct the correct understanding in the Zohar. There weren't many commentaries at the time. In Arizal, the Ramak was writing his commentary, and towards his later years, last years of life, 2 and a half years, he was told that apparently he knew that his time was near, and he came to the understanding that if not now then never, and he was instructed to call, quote unquote, call Rabbi Chayim Vital from Damascus to come and meet him in Tzfat, where he would give him a crash course in the Kabbalah they received from the Navi. Rabbi Chayim Vital did not come straight away. After 6 months, he did come, and then even then, so long as the Ramak was still alive, he was the main Rosh Yeshiva in the Kabbalah Yeshiva. And then he had 20 months left in his lifetime. Retroactively, it turned out to 20 months, but in 20 months he taught Rabbi Chayim Vital a lot of information, a lot of Torah, not always being able to explain everything. So he dictated many things. As Rabbi Chayim mentioned several times, that many times he would dictate. He would dictate because they had a lot of information. He would explain, of course, but not every stone was overturned. Rabbi Chayim Vital had a lot of work to do afterwards to understand. He would write and rewrite, and therefore, as a result, we have many levels of writings of Rabbi Chayim Vital. He came in many waves, as you write and rewrite and try to perfect his understanding. The Sefer Etz Chaim is a digest of 4 books. The first of which is the Madura Kama. The Madura Kama, before there is a teaching from Madura Kama, you would find the abbreviation Mem Kuf. The Madura Kama is an interesting story. Rabbi Chayim Vital was still young, and he was very, very sick. Very, very sick, on his deathbed almost. He outlived that many, many years, and as he was on his sick bed, not really observant of what was going on around him, somebody managed to borrow from his family 600 papers of his writings. They would write his earliest writings, and these 600 papers were borrowed for a couple of months, or maybe even hired. So they hired from the family, and this person, besides hiring the papers, renting the papers, he hired many scribes, and these scribes, in a short time, copied these papers. So this was published. First of all, it came out against Rabbi Chayim Vital as well. He was sick. He was not knowing about it, against his will completely. They were copied and eventually put to print. Now these are very raw writings, almost dictations from the Arizal, but they're very, very valuable. But they're very, very premature. They're very early writings and not very formulated. That's a Madura Kama. Rabbi Chayim Vital himself wrote what he called Etz Chaim, which are divided into 8 gates. 8 gates, the Shmona Sha'arim, Sha'ar HaKdamot, Sha'ar HaMitzvot, Sha'ar HaPesukim, Sha'ar HaGilgulim, Sha'ar Ruach HaKodesh, etc. And Sha'ar Ruach HaKodesh, and he wrote that in his own handwriting. He did not publish it in his lifetime. He handed the manuscript to his son Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Shmuel himself took a long time to publish it, even after his father passed away. He writes that he already had white hair in his middle age when he decided to put that to print, and he did. But the important point is that Rabbi Chayim Vital didn't publish the writings of the Arizal in his lifetime. Nor did he give any assurance to any permission to. What was stolen from him was against his will, and what he gave his son was not published in his lifetime. Besides that, besides that, when he left Eretz Israel, after the Arizal passed away, he lived several years in Eretz Israel. He was a Rav of the Sephardi Kehillah in Yerushalayim as well. And he left for several reasons. He went back to Damascus. And at that point, he left behind in a grave. Many people dig a grave for themselves. In case he would pass away, he bought a grave and he dug a grave. And leaving Eretz Israel, he took other manuscripts that he decided were not they're not meant to be published. And he put them in the Geniza in his own kever, which he did not need. Baruch Hashem, he lived in Damascus for decades afterwards. So he put in the Geniza in his own kever that he dug, and he went to Damascus. Now, many years afterwards, the Mekubalim, Rabbi Avraham Azulai, the grandfather of the Chida, and Mara Gelanti, understood that they have permission to dig them out, and they dug them out. According to my understanding, Rabbi Chayim Vital was still alive in Damascus, and they're already eaten by worms, and they were in bad shape. But nevertheless, they dug him out, and there are several books there: Otzot Chaim, famous Otzot Chaim, Adam Yeshar, and and Sefer Kilot Yaakov, and two other books. These the Otzot Chaim is the main book, is the skeleton, the backbone of Etz Chaim. Let's say a bit more. Rabbi Yaakov Tzemach, who was a Portuguese Jew, who was from the family of the Moranos, who only in his 40s discovered he was Jewish. Understanding that, he began to learn very intensely. After 6 years of Pshat, he delved into the Sod, and he spent his time, koach, and money, sold his house in order to be able to hire a team of Talmidei Chachamim to organize the teachings that the papers that came out of the grave of Rabbi Chayim Vital, who was still alive at the time, when they came out, and they toiled very hard to work on these writings, Otzot Chaim, Adam Yeshar, and Kilot Yaakov, and two others which are not so relevant to us. And
what were their names? What were their names?
I think Olat Tamid, and then a Perush on the Zohar. These books which were published by Rabbi Yaakov Tzemach, he invested lots of time, money, and effort into it, were then already out in his own publication. Then the Talmud of Rabbi Yitzchak, of Yaakov Tzemach, was Rabbi Meir Papirash. Rabbi Meir Papirash was a 13-year-old boy in Poland, in faraway Poland. He really wanted to learn Kabbalah. He didn't find the appropriate masters in Poland, so his parents sent him off to Yerushalayim. Understandably, he never came back. So they sent their son to learn Torah in the holy city. He became a big Talmid Chacham, master Kabbalist. He has other books as well. And he took these books, Otzot Chaim, Adam Yeshar, and Kilat Yaakov, that Mari Tzemach already had, and he put them into a digest. He called this digest with another book called those are the main ones. The Otzot Chaim is Madura Tinyana, the second edition, is the backbone of Etz Chaim, and around it gives a direction. It's the main storyline, and around it there's the Madura Batra, the last edition, Sefer Adam Yeshar and Sefer Kilat Yaakov, which are stuck around it like limbs around the skeleton. But Otzot Chaim is the main book, which for some strange reason is not printed in full nowadays. Most people do not learn the entire Otzot Chaim, but in Etz Chaim we see it, where it says Madura Tinyana, that's Otzot Chaim, where it says Madura Kama, Mem Kuf, it's the first edition, the earliest edition, where it says Mem Bet is Madura Batra, either Adam Yeshar or as we said, Kilat Yaakov. And so those are the main four books in Otzot Chaim, in Sefer Etz Chaim. Rabbi Meir Papirash called it Derech Etz Chaim, but with time it was called Etz Chaim, as most books are have the title Sefer Etz Chaim. The famous print is from Vus Yerushalayim, from Shivat Achai V'Shalom, Rav Mordechai Tia Shlita, where his grandfather put it out. And but for the purpose of this Shiur, we several Talmidim, two of them which are now here, we decided to order, instead of the Rashi script, the square letters from Otzah of Yeridas Chorim. The advantage is that it has the same layout, but in square letters. They did a wonderful job. Many newcomers to this field or to Torah in general prefer the square letters. Now, the order of our learning is to learn the 50 gates, the 50 Shiurim of Etz Chaim. But before we do that, we're going to skip Shar Kilarim, which is not from Rabbi Chayim Vital. There's many good things there, many accurate things, but I skip it because it's not from Rabbi Chayim Vital. What is from Rabbi Chayim Vital is in the very beginning. There's the famous Hakdama, Hakdamat Ma'arachu, Hakdamat Moreinu Rabbi Chayim Vital. Zechutah Yagidu Amen. Now, what is this Hakdama? This Hakdama is written to a different edition, which is not part of this book actually. We said that Rabbi Chayim Vital himself wrote the 8 Shmone Sharim, the 8 gates, which he called Etz Chaim, and he gave that over to his son Rabbi Shmuel. And in the beginning of that series of Shmone Sharim was his Hakdama. That later on they put in front of Shar Hakdamot, and the printers of the modern books of Etz Chaim print this Hakdama in the beginning of Etz Chaim, which is very important Hakdama, very important introduction to understand the teaching of Kabbalah, the importance of the learning, and many things, many principles in the Arizal that people don't know, never learned, and somehow managed to keep learning without having addressed. So I want to learn this together carefully, meticulously, maybe even painfully. Why do I say painfully? Because 12 years ago, the Almighty burned a fire in my heart. I took the words of the Rabbi Chayim Vital very, very seriously, and I was motivated to write this book, Ilana Dechaye, a commentary, a fiery commentary on the words of Rabbi Chayim Vital. There was so much fire that I only covered the beginning. The rest I did not address, but we'll be doing everything. So in the very beginning of the first weeks, maybe even months, we'll be addressing the Hakdama of Rabbi Chayim Vital, Be'iyun as they say, because I came up with many important things, and even now I'm writing. Thanks to a friend Michael and his encouragement and even pushing. I'm writing an English book called Why Kabbalah. And my first English book will be called Why Kabbalah, which is along the lines of this book, which is pretty much what Rabbi Chayim Vital is addressing in this Hakdama. So we will we'll be learning the words inside. At least I will, but it's not necessary for everybody to follow inside. It's enough that they follow in my book. So everybody has a volume of the book. Some have it at home. Probably not for everybody here. I recommend everybody takes the book because it's better that you read inside. In the very beginning of the book is after in the index is Divrei Marachu Hakdamat Rabbi Chayim Vital Ziyah. Mamash after all the tables of context. You have to flip a bit more. Once you get to the interesting material, there we go. Excuse me. So I'll be reading inside the book for those of us who won't prefer to read inside the book. Those who prefer to read inside my book, maybe even be more advantageous. But in the main books, the Hakdama of Rabbi Chayim Vital begins. I don't even know there's a page number. Yes, page Aleph. Now, I want to note that in the writings of the Arizal, at least the prints from Tfus Yerushalayim, every page is divided into 4 columns. So a daf as a leaf is a 2-sided page, right? And it has 2 columns each one. So we have 4 columns. So sometimes this will be Amud. This will be Daf Aleph. This will be Amud Aleph, Amud Bet, Amud Gimel, and Amud Dalet. That's how the Kabbalists do things, a bit different from everybody else. So in the notation, in the writings of the Arizal, it's noted as page so and so, and the Amud will be the tur, will be the column 1, 2, 3, or 4. So in the main book, it starts on page 1, page Aleph, tur Aleph. So we'll start with Hashem. Akdamat Marchu, the introduction of Morena Rabbi Chayim Vital, Zia, Zchota, Yakedan Amen, Al Shar Akdamot. We explain why the Shar Akdamot. It was written originally for Shar Akdamot of the 8 gates, but it was printed here for a good reason, so that we can all learn it. And so this is the main book, and the printers wanted everybody to learn the Akdama of Rabbi Chayim Vital very, very, very well. He begins, Amarat Sa'ir Ma'ir, the words of the youngest of his city, in terms of being humble, and he was actually young. We'll soon see how young he was. Amarat Sa'ir Ma'ir, but the youngest of his city, Hadal Ba'alfi, the most meager of his 1,000, as we know that the Moshe Rabbeinu appointed Sarei Alafim, Sarei Me'ot, ministers for every 1,000 Jews had a minister, every 100 Jews had a minister. So out of his 1,000 people who are his group of 1,000, he's the most meager. In other words, he's beginning with extreme sense of being humble. Chayim Vital ben Ladoni Avi Harav Yosef Vital. Zichor l'Chayim Abba. His name is Chayim ben Yosef. Yoti ben Sheloshim. He says, when I was 30 years old, lekoach, as the Mishnah says, Shloshim lekoach in Pirkei Avot. When I was 30 years, lekoach, I should have been in full strength. Shloshim lekoach. Tashash kochi. Instead of being 30 years full of strength, Davka at that point, when I should have been at my pinnacle of strength, Tashash kochi, my strength withered. Yeshavti mishtamem, and I said, bewildered. Umachshavotay temehim, and my thoughts are wondering, what's going on? What's going on? Ki avar kaitz, ki avar katzir, kale kaitz, v'anachnu noshanu. This is based on a pasuk in Yirmiyah, from the Haftarah. From the Haftarah of Tisha B'Av in the morning. Ki avar katzir, the harvest time is past. Kale kaitz, even the summer is all gone. V'anachnu noshanu, and we still haven't been rescued, been salvaged. Refuah lo alta lemachaloteinu, and the refuah, the medicine, the cure still hasn't healed our machala. What's the machala of the Jewish people? What's their main concern? We'll see soon. Ein mazor l'tzareinu. There's no mazor. It's probably the different powders they used to sprinkle on the wounded flesh. And mazor l'tzareinu v'lo alta aruka lemakatreinu, and no healthy new flesh has grown around our wound. So what's our wound? What's our machala? What's our problem? The Churban Beit Mikdashenu. That's really our problem. That's really the source of all our lack, everything that we are missing comes from Beit HaMikdash, all our success. I'm reading fast because we'll analyze these words. I'm just giving a translation as we go along. Hanechrav ze hayom, at the point of his writing, when he was 30 years of age, the Beit Mikdashenu, Beit HaMikdash, the temple has been already destroyed at the time of his writing. 1,504 shamim. 1,504 years. Oy lanu ki pana hayom. Woe to us as the day has passed. Which day? So it's also pasuk in Yirmiyah, but excuse me. But Rabbi Chayim Vital is referring to a very deep secret over here, which we'll analyze, if not this week and the next week. Oy lanu ki pana hayom. Woe to us as the day has passed. Which day? Yom echad shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a day of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shu 1,000 shanim as we know. One day of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is 1,000 years. Not only that, but 504 extra years have passed. The Gammatul Tzilei Erev already is past noon of the second millennium, the second day, right? And the Gammatul Tzilei Erev, the shades are starting to shift towards the west already. Shem 504 shanim. Now you have to be an expert to be able to see the shades starting to shift 4 years past quote unquote midday. But excuse me. But that's what he said. Yoter mechatzei yom hasheni. 1.5 years of HaKadosh Baruch Hu have passed, and even 4 more years of us. All the predicted dates that the Rishonim, Rashi, Ibn Ezra, I think Sa'ad Yadoin, all of the predicted years of salvation have already passed. ועדיין David לא בא, המשיח ודוד still hasn't come. So what? So we'll wait. ונודע את שאמרו רבותינו ז"ל, but we can't just wait. We have to take to heart and do something about it. Why? Because it's known what a sage's blessed memory said in the Talmud Yerushalmi, כל דור שלא נבנה בית המקדש בימיו, כאילו נחרב בימיו. Every generation that does not see the rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, a temple, in his own lifetime, it's כאילו נחרב בימיו. In other words, they are no better than that generation. Or in other words, we are no better than that generation.
Meaning as if we destroyed it.
What?
Meaning as if we destroyed it.
We are destroying it.
Because we didn't bring it.
If we had one, we'd destroy it.
Right. So.
If we had one, we'd destroy it. Therefore, Rabbi Chayim Vital was only 30 years, only 30, already taking these things to heart. I focused my intentions לחקור, to investigate ולדעת and to know מה זה ועל מה זה, why indeed להתארך קיצנו וגלותנו, why is it taking so long for the Geula to come? What are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? ומדוע לא בא בן ישי? And that's a good place to stop the paragraph translation. We still have time. We'll continue, but these words seem like almost poetic. They are written in poetic form, but they carry a lot of weight, which I did, and I hope to take time to explain together. Those who want to see inside the book with me, let's begin in Ilana de Chaye in Amud Ein Chet. Amud Ein Chet. No, even before that, I have a few notes over here in Amud Ein Bet. Ein Bet, Ein Gimel. Just a few words of Rabbi Chayim Vital himself. He was the Arizal told him was the gilded of the Rabbi Magid, the Magid Mishnah, the famous commentary of the Rambam, arguably the most primary commentary on the Rambam. The Arizal told him that in the previous gilded, Rabbi Chayim Vital did not focus on learning of Kabbalah, and that's why he came into the world. So he understood. It's probably referring to the Magid Mishnah, who was a master Talmudic scholar and a prolific writer, but did not give enough attention to the Zohar. So there's an example of somebody who's a great scholar who has to come back. Not a bad deal to come back as Rabbi Chayim Vital, but even the greatest scholars who may excuse themselves so busy writing commentaries on the Rambam, because he have to atone for that. He received a smicha from Moshe Al-Sheikh, who received from Rabbi Yosef Karo. These are the main people of the main Semuchim over there in Tzfat, the golden area of Tzfat. Okay. In Amud Ein Dalet. I want to focus on what he said. He was Amud Ein Dalet. Bioti ben 30 lekoach. Rabbi Chayim Vital said, made a point to say he was 30 years of age when he lost his koach. He became bewildered and weak. What's the significance of being 30? So I quote over here the words of the Chida in Shema Gedolim. The Chida writes as follows in the second paragraph. Rabim omrim dechesheba ma'alchu lilmod im Rabbeinu Arizal. Many say that when Rabbi Chayim Vital came to learn with the Arizal, haya yoter gadol me'arav zichrono livracha. The Chida wants us to understand that this is wrong. Some say that Rabbi Chayim Vital was older than the Arizal, but the Chida says that's a mistake. When he was Chida himself saw the manuscripts of Sefer Chizyonot of the Marchu, and the Marchu writes there, Rabbi Chayim Vital writes that he was born in the year Hey Shin Gimel 5303, and when he came to learn with Arizal, he was in the beginning of the year Shin Lamed Aleph 5331, which means he was only 28. So Rabbi Chayim Vital came to learn in front of the Arizal when he was 28 years of age, and 2 years later, more accurately 20 months later, in the 5th day of Av, the Arizal was taken, and he was only 38. So he was much younger than the Arizal. 8 years younger. So if you think that the Arizal learned Kabbalah early, the Rabbi Chayim Vital learned even earlier. So he was 28 or so when he began to learn, and he's writing this at age 30. So it seems that the reason why Rabbi Chayim Vital is so distraught in age 30 is because the Arizal just passed away. His master passed away, and he is confused what's going to be. What's going to be it seems that the Arizal was, when the Arizal was around, it took time for him to be known. He hid himself in the beginning in Eretz Israel, and there was a awakening of Teshuvah in the little time that he was here. I copied in the book in Amud Ein Hey from the book Shiur Arizal how when the Arizal became famous, everyone used to come to him, used to give him a tikkun, used to get tikkun what he has to do, and there's a arousal of teshuvah in the world. The Arizal himself hinted that he was Mashiach ben Yosef of the generation. He asked his Talmidim to please pray for Mashiach ben Yosef that he will not die in the hands of Armilos Arasha. And only post-mortem did they understand that he was referring to himself. He didn't specify that he was, but Rabbi Chayim Vital only understood afterwards that he was praying for himself. There was a great, almost a sense of teshuvah in the air, and many people were awakening, and the Kabbalah, many learned Kabbalah and purity. They're standing in line for their reason to give them their tikkun, how to repent, and we lost that. We lost at a very young age of the Arizal. He did not give over all the Torah that he wanted to give over to Rabbi Chayim Vital. Our Masoret is that he came back as the Rabbeinu Arshash 200 years later or so in order to make up for that. Several reasons why he passed away. So there was a strife amongst the Talmidim and their wives of Rabbi Chayim Vital, and some other things that Rabbi Chayim Vital probably brought upon himself. The Arizal begged him, says, I don't want to teach anybody else. Says, I came into the world to teach you, Rabbi Chayim Vital, nobody else. Rabbi Chayim Vital was very humble. Says, why should I take all the Torah? And the Arizal begged him, please don't bring any other Talmidim. And he did not listen to him. He brought him many Talmidim, and then the wives had some strife, and that's why the Shalom, Chevrat Ahavat Shalom, that the Rashash started, and many other communities started Chevrat Ahavat Shalom to base the group on peace and harmony and respect. It's so important for this learning. So there was an awakening. People begin to think this is the coming of Mashiach is coming. Mashiach is coming. And after when Arizal passed away, all hopes began to die out. And that's why Rabbi Chayim Vital at the age of 30 is in such pain and despair. What's going on? Why are we not rescued already? And as we'll see, the answer next week is you can probably predict what his answer is the lack of study of Kabbalah. That's the main tikkun to bring Mashiach. But before we do that, the little time we have today and the beginning of the Shiur next week, I want to focus on the period of time that Rabbi Chayim Vital pointed out, 1,000 years and another 504. But the way Rabbi Chayim Vital phrased it, he said Yeah, כי פנה היום, יום אחד של הקדוש ברוך הוא. One day of הקדוש ברוך הוא, which is 1,000 years. So, it's no secret that a day of הקדוש ברוך הוא is 1,000 years. It's found in Arizal, see it in the commentaries on Tehillim. The pasuk says in Tehillim 94, כי 1,000 שנים בעיניך כיום אתמול, כי יעבור בשמוע בלילה. כי 1,000 שנים בעיניך, in the eyes of you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, 1,000 years is like a day that passed yesterday. So from this pasuk, we are now, I'm looking in the Amud Ayin Chet in my book. Ayin Chet, sorry. כי 1,000 שנים בעיניך כיום אתמול, כי יעבור. 1,000 years of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like a day. And it's early in Chazal, I believe, in Mefarshim over there. But what is the significance to us of 1,000 years? And it's actually very, very, very significant. I'm not sure how much to go into it, but I'll say it. I'll say it outside the book. If necessary, we'll delve more inside. The second destruction of the temple was a catastrophe, much bigger than the first one. It's comparable to the sin of Adam Rishon and to the breaking of the Luchot, the Chet Egel of the making of the golden calf. It was a big catastrophe, and it was such a grave damage. There was decreed upon them 1,000 years of exile. 1,000 years of exile minimum, which means that only in the that during the first 1,000 years after the Churban, Mashiach cannot come. And not ironically, but very, 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 very much by divine providence, the Zohar was hidden for those 1,000 years, because the secret is actually in the Zohar that Mashiach will not come for those 1,000 years. I think I do want to see this inside. We have some time today. I want to read again from the words of the Chidah that I copied in Amud Pei, in my book, in Amud Pei. So this may sound foreign to some people. I want to see it inside. If you don't finish this evening, we'll finish next week with Hashem. In Amud Pei. These are the words of the Chidah. Of the Chidah in Shem HaGedolim, Amud Pei. כי גזרה חוכמתו יתברך, in the top paragraph, Amud Pei. כי גזרה חוכמתו יתברך, was decreed by his great, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's great wisdom, שיהיו 1,000 שנים בגלות זו. It was decreed to be a minimum of 1,000 years in this galut. כי דכתיב, as the pasuk says, נתנני שוממה, pasuk in Eicha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put me in a state of shimamon, of desolation. Kol hayom dava, the entire day dava. Dava means sick, means in a weak state. But as we'll soon see, it's also letters of hod. Kol hayom dava. The who says the Chidah, hu yomo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which Rabbi Chayim Vital was referring to. Yomo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the 1,000 years of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then Mashiach cannot come immediately after the destruction of the second temple. The secret is in the Zohar and even in the Midrash, several places. וכל התנאים והאמוראים היו סמוך לחורבן בתוך 1,000 שנים. All the Tanaim, all the Amoraim were in the generations very close to the Khurban during these 1,000 years. Rav Ashi, who chronicled the Talmud Bavli, Rav Ashi שסדר התלמוד היה בשנת ש"נ"ח 358 to the Khurban, ולכן לא הועיל כל קדושתן להביא משיח כי גזרו עומדת. He says, who can be greater than the Tanaim? Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, all the Amoraim, Rabbi Abai Rava, Rabbi Yochanan and Shlakish. How come they were not zech to bring the Khurban? Certainly they were bigger than any of us. Certainly. But the decree was out that no matter how big the tzaddikim are, even the generation of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they did not see the keshet. They have a rainbow. They're so pious and such excellent learners and mekubalim did not see the coming of Mashiach because the decree was out 1,000 years minimum. ואפשר, says the Chida, דביות גזירת החורבן 1,000 שנים, since the Khurban, the destruction was decreed for 1,000 years, וכל הקדושים, Shalom, it's better if you take a book from there. We're reading the Akdama of Rabbi Chayim Vital. Actually, now we're recording the book, the words of the Chida.
It's okay.
ואפשר, בהיות גזירת החורבן 1,000 שנים, since the decree of the Khurban was at least 1,000 years, וכל הקדושים היו בתוך 1,000 שנים, it's this, all the Kedoshim, all these holy Tanaim, Amoraim, and then the Geonim, the early Rishonim, were during these 1,000 years. לא רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא שיתגלה ספר הזוהר. That's why the Almighty, in his great foresight, did not want the Zohar to be discovered, to be publicized in these 1,000 years. שיש בכמה חומות בו אנשים, the Zohar, as we know, has many stringencies, many things that will scare the wit out of you, unnecessarily. But there are many things that are pshat halacha, and the Zohar makes it much more complicated to be yotzi lechatchila. So since Mashiach will not have come anyways during these 1,000 years, and better to all these stringencies and tikkunim and all those scary things. For example, what it says about zera labatala, that there's nowhere to repair it. All those things which are not completely literal, but very very concerning. So it's better that the people will not know about these stringencies, because anyways Mashiach will not come. Kirachem al banim, says the Chida. Kirachem out of Hashem's mercy not to reveal these stringencies. כי באותו הפרק היו שמדות ותוקף הצרות, והיו ישראל בצער גדול, as we know, with many hard times. ואם היו מתגלים דברי הקדושים, רשב"י וחבריו, had it been that the words of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his fellows in the Zohar would have been revealed, so people couldn't say, I didn't know. Anyways, they were betrotten. Anyways, they had many difficulties, and better not to make things even harder. At least have the excuse as they didn't know. Aval, says the Chida, once 1,000 years have surpassed since the destruction of the second temple. When was that? When was this? Bishat 4,000 tav kafchet 4828. Aza yachol Mashiach. Only 1,000 years. Only once 1,000 years have surpassed, then Mashiach can come. But says the Chida, b'avonotenu rabim, ishtoi ishtayeh, and Rabbi Chayim Vital wrote what he wrote almost 407 years ago, and at the time it was 1,504 years, and it's almost embarrassing to say we were almost at 2,000, very, very close to 2,000 years without the coming of Mashiach. So it was 1,000 years of desolation, of emptiness, and the Zohar was hidden because Mashiach simply couldn't come. So for those 1,000 years, Rabbi Chayim Vital says that I understand. 1,000 years, which is Yomosha Kodesh Baruch Hu, that I understand. But what about the 504 years that have surpassed since then? There's more to say. Our hour is out, is over, and like a good storyteller will stop here mid-sentence and hope that all of us will come back and have even more people with us next week. I put on ads and people spreading the words, but Hashem will have many more. Thank you, and hopefully it's the beginning of something even greater.
And a bracha.
A bracha?
A bracha.
I bless everybody here that him and his entire family will see the coming Mashiach. Bimheira v'yameinu, and by then all of us will come to our perfect tikkun in the world, and we'll see that this really is a beautiful world as they promised. Don't give up on this world. Baruch Adonai La'olam. Amen. Amen.
Amen. No.